Bills made another move today. Mitch Trubisky is the new backup quarterback in Buffalo. And look, as a backup, that's fantastic. I mean, this is a guy that, for all his faults, and he's got a lot of them, but for all his faults, he went 29 and 21 in 50 games as the quarterback for the Bears. Went to a playoff, went to a couple playoff games. So he's had team success, and he's had some individual success too. And when it comes to backup quarterbacks, you probably won't find much better in the NFL. Maybe Trubisky and Ryan Fitzpatrick and then everybody else. So from that point of view, this is a heck of an ad, for the Bills. I mean, look, you never want to see the backup quarterback play, but if Trubisky goes in, Brandon Beane talked about it just a little while ago that he plays a pretty similar style to Josh Allen. He does a lot of similar Josh Allen things and probably would fit, right in the offense pretty well. And of course, this offense, as much just success Josh Allen has had last season, a lot of that success is because the supporting cast around him is immaculate. I mean, you got an elite receiver in Stephon Diggs, got a really good slot in Cole Beasley. Now the Bills have a pretty darn good second receiver in Emmanuel Sanders, basically replacing John Brown to an extent. The offensive line is all back together again. They may not be great, but they're better than average. So there are a lot of good pieces around the quarterback in Buffalo to where if Trubisky has to play for 3 or 4 or 5 games, the Bills won't go 1-4 in that group of games. So obviously having a backup quarterback is a big deal, especially for a team like the Bills. They've stated this year that their goal is to be able to host the AFC Championship. We got to win a lot of regular season games that way. And if you're starting quarterbacks out for 2 and your backup's terrible, well, then you can kiss that goal goodbye because the Chiefs are probably at worst, going 14-2. So this move makes a lot of sense from that point of view. But here's where I go the other way on it. The Bills don't have a whole lot of resources, a whole lot of cap money. And Brandon Beane talked about that extensively today. He spoke at the very end about, people who think the Bills can just restructure contracts and create extra cap money. Well, that causes a problem because when you restructure, you push cap hits down the road. Now, every contract's different. Some cap hits aren't that big a deal in terms of a yearly basis, but that's still what you're doing. And Beane said, look, that's something I've done before, I've been through before, and I don't want that albatross hanging over me. I don't want to have to cut guys because I've pushed money down the road. So look, he's not going to close the door on doing it and creating cap space, but by my math and by what's been made public in terms of figures and contracts and stuff like that, the Bills are already in a spot where they need to create some more cap room, where they probably don't have enough to pay, whatever their rookie class this year. Not by a lot, $1 million or $2 million, depending on a couple contracts, but they are probably over the limit right now and need to restructure a couple deals just to be able to accommodate a rookie class. So there's not a lot of money to spend here. And if the Bills put a sizable amount of money into Mitch Trubisky, and we have no idea what the contract is, maybe it's only $3-4 million. I'd suspect it's considerably more than that. And they're not able to afford or be in the running for Zach Ertz or Carlos Dunlap or Aldon Smith or any of those other guys who could help at both a tight end or an edge rushing point of view. And one quick aside, Kyle Rudolph and Jared Cook today both signed for $6 million per year, believed. So a tight end is not going to come cheap, a veteran. The Bills might be able to wait out the market and find somebody really cheap, but you're not getting a good, solid veteran tight end for $2 million. So if the Bills spend on Mitch Trubisky and didn't get better at tight end and didn't get better at edge rusher, then this has not been a good offseason. This is not a team that you would think has the resources to add a luxury like Mitch Trubisky. They should have. This should have been the last year of Josh Allen on the rookie contract. This should have been the last year of basically freewheeling spending for the Bills, but the pandemic cost them that. So in a normal season, they should have had the money to add a guy like Mitch Trubisky on a 1-year deal, improve your backup quarterback, and still be able to, improve the roster around them. But the Bills don't have that luxury right now. So from that point of view, I have a big question for this move because there are things this team still needs. They were 1 game away from a Super Bowl, but they got hammered in that 1 game. And then the team that hammered them, they got hammered in the Super Bowl. So how close were the Bills really to winning a championship? To be able to just bring everybody back, we'll add in a depth piece here, we'll take our old veteran receiver, John Brown, change him out for a different, older veteran receiver in Emmanuel Sanders, and that's all we're going to do? Now, obviously, free agency is far from over. There's still a draft class to add, so rookies can help. The Bills are going to have a first-round pick this year, but they have limited resources, and spending that on a backup quarterback is something that I think is certainly warrants a bit of criticism if the Bills don't do anything more. We get to week 1, and they got Carlos Dunlap, and a quality veteran tight end and Mitch Trubisky on the sideline, then this is a great move. But right this second, without the other things, I'm not so sure about that. Other things from the press conference today, in terms of pursuing an edge rusher or a tight end or a kick returner, the Bills didn't certainly show any of their cards today. I still think that this is a team that's probably going to have to shop the bargain bin in terms of free agent opportunities. Now, look, the bargain bin's going to have a lot of better players this year than it normally does because there's more guys being released and there are teams with cap space to pay for them. So there are going to be options for the Bills at all those spots. But they are not going to get the first, second, or the third. They're going to get like the seventh, eighth, or ninth choice is what the Bills are probably going to be chasing. But no, like I said, no cards being shown there. Beane did acknowledge that the Bills did talk with Rob Gronkowski, and it sounded like a pretty basic, let's check. And Gronk apparently had some interest being from Buffalo. Why wouldn't he? But it didn't sound like those discussions really got far. I don't think that's a surprise. The only real big surprise to me is the comment on letting Corey Bojorquez go. Brandon Beane was a little vague about it. He said that Bojorquez, that just didn't work out. Made it seem like that Bojorquez did not want to be in Buffalo, whether that be because of a culture scheme fit. I mean, punter scheme, I don't know what the heck that would be. Or more likely, probably the Bills just didn't give enough money. Now, I don't know what Bojorquez expects to make on the open market. He had one really good year, but he did it in a year where he punted less than he ever has on a team that doesn't really need to punt. So, maybe he does have a market. I don't know. But it was a bit curious for sure. So, let's see. Oh, you guys got some comments here. What do you got? Kevin Anderson, great addition to the offense. I mean, look, it's a great addition. When you talk about backup quarterbacks, Mitch Trubisky is a great addition. I don't think there's any debating that. But whether it helps the team as a whole, I'm not so sure. Defensive back in the draft, Corey. Good question. I haven't really gone into my draft study. I've been mostly concentrating on veterans and free agents. Like this morning, I spent a solid hour banging through different edge rusher options that were still available. So I will get to the draft, but that's probably going to be an April thing if that's okay. But a good question, Corey, for sure. Corey, now look, if we're going to just say Trubisky was not that good because he played for the Bears, I mean, I don't think that's fair. Trubisky had his fair share of issues and problems. Could the Bills rehabilitate that? I mean, there are a lot of people who pointed that out on Twitter that, he may have seen what the Bills did with Josh Allen and thought maybe they can help me out. I think that's very reasonable. But putting his issues on the team, I don't think that's fair. Jamie Feasel, great move. He's better than Barkley. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the Bills certainly upgraded a backup quarterback. Scott Zietz, I get the impression that Brandon and Sean are happy with who we have as far as running backs. Yeah, that was another thing that was talked about today. Brandon Beane sent specifically that we feel good about the running game personnel they have already. And I'll tell you what, I don't think the Bills' problem is at running back. I know there's a big push out there to chase either Najee Harris or Travis Etienne with the first pick for the Bills at pick number 30 overall. But watching on film, I didn't see a lot of situations where Devin Singletary and Zach Moss were going to the wrong hole, hitting a hole slow, doing the wrong thing. For the most part, if anything, those two guys were making more yards on their own than they were giving up. The problem with the Bills is that their offensive line is built to pass protect. Other than Ike Butker and maybe Cody Butker, Ford, Feliciano, and I don't really think Ford does much of anything well. Feliciano certainly is a better run blocker than pass blocker. Same thing for Butker. But Morrison, the two tackles, are much better pass protectors than they are run blockers. Deion's pretty good at everything. So I think this offensive line is built more to protect the quarterback than it is to create run game space. And I think that's been the big problem with it so far. It's not the running backs, it's the offensive line. And the Bills brought that back intact. So I don't think there's going to be much change there. Anything else here? All right, guys, I appreciate your time. A little Facebook Live from home. Wanted to get in early. I'm actually off today, but, big news, big press conference. Wanted to get some time. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys later.